I'd mentioned that Heidegger uses this German word Dasein for human existence, which is literally a compound word, being there, and that he's going to play with it a lot because German has this capacity to form all sorts of different kinds of compounds out of, for example, Sein. And I'm going to give an example of that using a poem. So please bear with me. I'm going to apologize for my poor German as I recite this short poem in German, and I'll explain what it means in English. So the poem is called Dein Hinübersein by Celan. Dein Hinübersein heute Nacht, mit Worten holt ich dich wieder. Da bist du, alles ist wahr und ein Warten auf Wahres. Es klettert die Bonne vor unserem Fenster, denkt, wer neben uns aufwächst und ihr zusieht. Gott, das lasen wir, ist ein Teil und ein zweiter, zerstreuter. Im Tod all der Gemähten wägt er sich zu. Dorthin führt uns der Blick. Mit dieser Hälfte haben wir Umgang. Okay, rough translation of that into English. So remember, Dein Hinübersein. You're being way out there in the night. With words, I brought you back. There you are. Everything is true and awaiting the truth. Let's see, a beanstalk or a beanstalk, klettert, which is like to hit against. A beanstalk is banging against our window. Think who is sitting next to it and sees it. God, we've read. God, actually, I'm going to translate that part. God, as we've gathered, is one part and a second part destroyed. In the death of all those who are mowed, he grows back into himself. That's where the glance leads us. It's with this half that we have relations. So excuse me, I have a better translation somewhere, but that's sort of on the fly. I'm sure you can find better translations online. I'll link to some in the comments. So why did I make you guys hear that poem? Well, as I mentioned, the ability of this German to do these compounds is pretty robust. Also, this poet I'm mentioning, Celan, is almost actually certainly riffing on Heidegger's idea of Dasein there. The German word da means there in a very, very generic sense. Like if you like, oh, over there somewhere, right? Or, right there. Anything that could be pretty much any location. Any location can be a da. Dein Hinübersein, is much more specific. It means way out there, way beyond there. There's all sorts of different ways to be da. You can be here, you can be close, you can be far away. What's Celan doing with that? Well, I'm going to talk about him as we'll get into Being in Time more and more. He's writing much later. This poem is from 1960. And as I mentioned, he's very deeply influenced by Heidegger. This is going to be interesting for a lot of reasons. This is actually, by the way, what I wrote a lot of my dissertation on. So you're going to apologize for I'm going to apologize for my rabbit hole here. But Celan was many things. He was arguably the most important German language poet of the second half of the 20th century. He was also a survivor of the Holocaust, of the Shoah, what he would usually just call that which happened. And understandably wanted very little to do with anyone who had been associated with the Nazi Party. The only real exception to this being Heidegger. Their relationship is incredibly complicated. I don't, again, there's a great book on it, which I'll again link to in the comments, by James Lyons, Heidegger, Unresolved Conversation. Now, I want to come back then a little bit into the poem itself, right? You're being way out there in the night. Celan describes whoever this you is. And one of the things that we'll find in Celan's poetry is that he's incredibly attentive to ambiguity. The you here can be a generic you. It's probably also his murdered mother. It's probably also, or at least potentially also a lover. Right? At least the reference to who's growing in the window is probably, or who's going next to the window and looking at this beanstalk clattering, is probably his young son. And the you here could be his wife. The you here could also be his mother, who will never meet her grandson. But whoever is way out there in this night is being brought back through words, right? So there is a location, even though we're going to, in another poem from the same collection of Celan's, he'll talk about this Hinüber being outside of a world entirely. It can be brought back into the world through language. Right? This is what a lot of Celan's poetry has to do with memory. I want to come back, and there's so much to do in this poem, I'm not going to finish it in a TikTok video, but I want to come to the end, right? I've been talking a lot about the war of the gods here, and here we have a reference to a kind of God. We're going to have a reference to the idea of the death of God in Nietzsche. God, as I said, as we've gathered, the German word there, Dasein, can mean to read. You could argue that God, as we've read, but a better translation for a lot of reasons, which again, I'm not going to get into now, is God as we've gathered, right? Is one part, and another part, we've got gathering, and then we've got this word zerstreuen, which can mean to strew, or to destroy, or to strew, right? And it's this part of God that's destroyed is trying to be recovered, but that's the only part we can deal with, right? So we've got gathering and we've got dispersal. We've got a world and we've got something threatening the world. And Celan is describing his relationship to some sort of God through that activity of gathering and dispersal. Again, there's a lot going on here. I'm not going to belabor it too much, but I want to sort of give you guys a sense of the complex kind of linguistic games that can go on as we start to describe what it means to be human simply through the act of location. What does it mean to occupy a space? How do we occupy different spaces? How do words, memories, death, life, love, childbirth, murder, loss, situate us in a world, situate places, and give places, times, etc., a certain kind of meaningfulness? When Heidegger is going to say that the core of the human being is this Dasein, it's that kind of complicated activity in language, in activity, in history, but also in our personal lives that he's going to try to be getting at.